The Referee's a podcast with Jack and Kelly too. Scottish Championship class, they give us the show. Footy tales from the pitch, controversies they scratch. Every moment they'll itch, no call left to bash.
Here we go again. We're back. The Referee's a Podcast, Season 2. I'm Cameron Smith, as always. With me here, Mr. Jack Curry. Say hello to these wonderful folks.
Hello, everybody at home. Apologies, there's not been an episode for the last couple of weeks, but thank you very, very, very much for sticking with us. We are delighted to be back. Cam, it's going to be such a pivotal point of the season. It's getting very, very exciting up at both ends of the table as always. But before we get into the football, how's things been with yourself? Tell all the ladies and gentlemen you've having a good week so far?
Yeah, been very good. Very good. It's just sort of flown by. You blink a few times and all of a sudden it's Wednesday, and you think back and you go, have I just worked for 3 days? I'm not sure, but the calendar's telling me that I have, so I must have done. But yeah, no, it's just flying by. As you know, the older you get, the quicker time goes, so it's starting to certainly feel that now. What about yourself?
Yeah, Cam, it's one of those ones. Obviously, anybody listening to this, it'll be out on the Thursday. So, as you said, the week's very much, well in its way, through. So, yeah, no, it's been a very good one so far. It's been a busy one as always, and I've got my sets on. Hopefully, making it up to another Friday night at Farhill. So, yeah, busy as always, Cam, but very, very good. And that's one I'll throw to the listeners as a wee quick question: is how do you consume your podcast? Are you listening to us at work just now? Are you driving? Are you out on a walk, exercising? However you consume your podcast, let us know, because that's always going to be interesting.
Send us a picture on our X or our Twitter account, tag at the Referee's a Podcast, with a picture of where you're listening to the podcast. We'll see if anyone
best unique location wins a mystery prize.
The mystery prize is it's a great mystery. Great mystery.
A mystery to us, some might say as well.
It'd be a mystery box. You could open it and it could have nothing in it. Probably will. But it might have something. I don't know. Might have something.
That's what this life's all about, taking chances, Cam.
It's
about taking your chances.
How many people buy loot boxes and video games, or FIFA packs, seeing as we're based on football at the moment. Yeah, it's the same thing. That's our mystery box. Send in your locations now.
I know, because even McDonald's have got in this, haven't they, with these cards? Have you bought any of them yet?
Well, I've bought one meal that should have came with cards, and I got home and realised there was no cards in the bag, and I was like, oh, well, fuck. But yeah, no, I've not gotten any of the cards yet. Have you got the cards?
No, I've not had a McDonald's.
Scum. And I'll get something this weekend. And the thing is, that obviously, as you know, they keep sending me and yourself this 9 chicken nuggets plus medium chips for $2.99 or whatever it is. So it's hard to not use that when you've got it, and instead buy a full priced meal so that you can get some cards with the small chance of getting something free. They've really got everyone by the balls, don't they? That's fucking mental. We're just talking about business and marketing. They've worked it out. They cracked it.
Exactly. So that's the next challenge for us, Cam, cracking it.
Right. Now, let's move on from McDonald's and free advertising for them. See the masterclass they've just done. We're going to go on to football now. Scottish Championship football, to be precise. Obviously, we've missed a few weeks, so there's obviously a fair amount of shit that's happened, but we'll maybe just sort of touch on how the teams have been going in the missing weeks as we talk about the games that happened this past weekend. Starting off with Friday night game yourselves. Sorry, no, I'm looking at this the wrong way around. That's the Tuesday night game. The Friday night game was still yourselves.
It was us, yes. No, you were starting in the right bit, and then you said I'm looking at the wrong bit. I'm like, no, you're doing right so far. I was liking where it was going.
The midweek game's the top. It's alphabet date ordered backwards. So Friday, the 20th of March, Partick Thistle against St Johnstone. You went. I didn't. I watched though. What were your thoughts on the game from being a Partick Thistle fan in the stadium?
Well, obviously it was a massive game. You know, the build up for it, you felt it in the days before. You know, there was heightened kind of media coverage talking about it. You know, I think especially listening to Clyde One Super Scoreboard every Wednesday night, you've got Tony Watt and Alex Ray. So you know, hearing them talk about it on there and getting such a sort of mainstream, you know, angle from it. Then you've seen the build up. The game's obviously on BBC as well. So mixing that with obviously the excitement, chatting to everybody about it. You know, it was a big game. You know, sold out. John Lambie stand behind the goal. I think St Johnstone brought down, 12 or 1300,
Yeah.
and there was a good crowd overall. I think there was pushing 7,000 there. So, you know, fantastic build up, Cam. It was an outstanding atmosphere, you know, in the game. You know, the full 90 minutes, noise, and I really hope that came across on the telly. It was palpable, you know, and there was a certain point in the game where I was standing behind the goal, and you know, you're so in it during the game, and the emotion, and you're singing and everything. And you know, we were up against it, Thistle, at large parts of that game, but it was the turning point in the first half for me, where as soon as the fans from Thistle lifted it from, you know, 8 to a real 10 out of 10 level of everybody going for it, the stand shaking, the noise going, that lifted the players in the park, and you seen the chances that then came of it. So I think from a Thistle perspective in the footballing field, we didn't start the best in the first half, but we grew into the game, and we're certainly the strongest team going into the break. But we just kind of didn't really properly go for it maybe in the second half, and St Johnstone showed their class to kind of maybe pin us back without either team overly troubling the goalkeeper. I think the final thing I would say just now, Cam, on it though, from our perspective, is it was a massive result, keeping a clean sheet, considering, you know, we were easily missing 4 or 5 key players. And you know, I think you can say for a team at the top end of the Scottish Premiership, missing 4 or 5 key players, you know, isn't a big issue when you've got a squad of 30. But for anybody at our level, you know, that's down to the bare bones. So I think it was a fantastic performance on the night when you kind of sort of think back on it.
Yeah, no, definitely. However, I've just done one of the points you talked on there. You know, it's a game of 21 shots with only 3 on target combined, both teams. 2 St Johnstone, 1 for yourselves. So yeah, certainly not troubling the goalkeeper too much, which, you know, when obviously it comes down to it at the end of the day, you need to be troubling the goalkeeper. But you know, like you say, it's a clean sheet. You've not lost to St Johnstone, so you know they've not taken 3 points off further into the distance. But as we talked about pre-game, you know, this was for Partick Thistle, and you know, in terms of their push for the title, this was almost a must-win game. Now, obviously, you've not managed to win. Are you happy enough with just the point on that basis?
Well, obviously, we'll talk about it now because I can't answer this question without talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
We had the game in hand on Tuesday night against Wraith Rovers away, and that was a place, Cam, that we hadn't won in 15 years.
Yeah.
It was a place that we hadn't won since 2011, and we obviously went up there last night and got the 2-0 victory. What that's done to the table is obviously put us 5 points behind St Johnstone with 6 games to go. That's a tall order, I think for any team to obviously overcome.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I would say from a Thistle perspective, when you look at the fixtures, is yes, we've played on Friday. Now, by the time St Johnstone will have played their next match, we will have played an extra 2. But what that could allow us to do is to go 2 points behind St Johnstone if we beat Ross County, with St Johnstone then playing yourselves on the Saturday.
Yeah.
That could be the first time that St Johnstone have really, really felt, you know, us breathing down their neck in a position where, you know, the media and certain forms, Jonathan Sutherland and other people have basically already gave them the title. If they are now going into their next match with us only 2 points behind, you know, and they slip up, the title race is right back on again.
Well, I mean, let's not forget, obviously you're saying this the first time you're breathing down your neck. I don't think it was that long ago. Did you not take over the lead of the championship for a week? You know, St Johnstone had been, 8 or 9 points ahead. You closed the gap right up, certainly onto same points. But I had this funny feeling that you went ahead of them at some point. Did you not?
I don't think so. I could be wrong.
Certainly closed it to the same points, and then potentially even if it was just a difference of playing a Friday for yourselves and a Saturday for St Johnstone. I'm so certain that you have taken the lead of
Maybe we did.
this championship at one point this season, but I may be wrong. Listeners, let us know, because I don't really know how I would go about going back and finding that information out. So yeah, we'll leave it with you guys if you have a better memory than either one of us and can say concretely. But you've certainly been pushing them the whole season long, so there's no reason to think that you can't keep that pressure going. But you're right, it is going to take obviously St Johnstone to throw it away in some capacity. But it's still 6 games left to go, 5 points. It's certainly attainable, but obviously Partick Thistle just need to continue maintaining the good performances, and consistently bringing the points in. But you look at yourselves and you look at St Johnstone at the top of that top of that league, and you both have the same form over the last 6 games, a bit differently spread, but 3 draws, 3 wins. Keep that going to the end of the season. Both teams, obviously St Johnstone, go in and win that, but it only takes 2 hiccups, a draw and a loss, where Partick Thistle get a win, tighten that right back up. Now, St Johnstone, their goal difference is crazy, so you do have to take the points over them. You're not going to gain that goal difference in 6 games, but stranger things have happened, so we'll see how it goes.
Definitely. One final point I want to make on, just the whole Thistle St Johnstone chat just now is there was a lot in the build-up from St Johnstone fans in particular, criticising Mark Wilson in his pre-match interview, and really sort of putting the pressure all on Thistle, almost sort of saying that St Johnstone could be relaxed, going into the match. But what I think really irked the St Johnstone fans was just a wee bit of home truths, and it was actually proven correct. Is Mark Wilson made no secret that I think Thistle were in the running to sign 3 strikers in January,
right,
and all 3 of them signed for St Johnstone. Those 3 being Rudy Payton, Alfie Aguiman, and Josh Fowler. And what he's then saying is 2 of the guys are going to be on their bench. And they would have came in as clear starters for us. So, all of this rubbish that the pressure's on us, when you look at the differences of the 2 sides, I'm looking at the bench of Thistle, Diak, youth, Dolan, youth, Falconer, youth, Gray, youth, for example, that's Fitzpatrick started youth, Stanway came through the youth. Compare that to St Johnstone, who, out-muscled us for 3 strikers, who 2 of them can't even get a game just now. The pressure is certainly on them, Cam. I wouldn't be afraid to say that their wage budget could be close to double ours.
Oh, for sure. Now, obviously, in terms of Aguiman and Payton, they've not obviously signed them. They did obviously sign Josh Fowler from us. Would Partick Thistle have been in the monetary range of being able to offer what is reportedly around £120,000 for Josh Fowler with 6 months in his deal?
Well, I think what Mark Wilson was saying was whether that was. I think all I think kind of took from it is I know there was talks of / bid put in.
Well,
so
I did
don't
assume
know the details on
I
that.
did assume that any championship club who could have afforded him would have been in, but obviously the only reason St Johnstone managed to stump up that money is because they just sold Sidibe for 180 or 140 grand or whatever down south. So they had that little bit of pocket change sitting around to be able to snipe what was the most prolific striker in the division at the time. How that has changed for the poor boy who can't even make it to the starting lineup for St Johnstone now. So I wonder if he'll be regretting moving club and not starting and playing every minute of every game. He was certainly the sort of player who wants to be on the pitch and scoring goals. So we'll see how that pans out for St Johnstone and their all of a sudden overabundance of striking talent.
Absolutely, Cam. Absolutely, it's about keeping all of those players happy, and I think they've got far too many big personalities in that squad to be able to do that. So
that's what I was saying when I saw that. Obviously, they signed Fowler, signed Payton. They already have Gullen. They have Stanton, McPake. They bring in Aguiman. You think every single one of those players, except maybe like Stanton, are wanting to be the main man, scoring all the goals and being the centre point, the focal point. And you can't have 4 focal points on the pitch. It doesn't work.
No, exactly.
So
Exactly. And then even exactly. So yeah, interesting point, Cam. I completely agree with you there. So yeah, St Johnstone have obviously got the points that I had. Obviously, they are the favourites, but
yes,
I back
and
Thistle to
they
do
are
everything they
doing
can to
well.
keep them going.
Let's not take away from the fact that I'm saying you can't have 4 focal points on the pitch. They've won 3 out of their last 4 games, so who am I to say? But I think if there's something that's going to stand in their way of the title this season, it would be that. But 6 games left to go. See how it goes. We'll move on to another team because we've been talking about Thistle and St Johnstone for the entirety now. Moving on.
Well, we'll move on to your team.
Oh God, right, okay.
Because am I right in saying here it says that Arbroath scored with their only shot in the game? Is that right?
Well, I don't really remember much shots either way. I remember looking at the stats after the game and seeing that we had like 7 or something like that, and I was like, "What? When? Who?" I do remember when I thought back at a couple. Just poor, completely off target efforts. I remember a few of those, but I certainly don't recall keeper saves. But a lot of the action for us was when the football was all happening down at the far end of the pitch, and we were obviously up behind the goals at the other side, so it was a bit more difficult to see. But it wasn't a good game. And the goal that they scored was 100% preventable, and a double mistake from Matty Shields and Cal Ferry, where Matty Shields is running towards goal, big looping ball dropping down. He sees the Arbroath man running behind him, sees Callum Ferry approaching from his goals towards the edge of the box, lets it bounce and goes for the header back to Callum Ferry, but he doesn't really header it with too much vigour, and nor does Callum Ferry continue moving towards the ball. He stops and waits for it. And as I mentioned, Matty Shields has seen the Arbroath player, and he just comes round, waits for Matty Shields to head the ball towards Ferry, moves in between, nicks it away with his foot, wanders onto the empty goal and puts the ball in the net. And like you've spotted there, that was their only attempt on goal, and it was, like I say, fully preventable just from some absolutely ridiculous thought process from the two of them. Not sure why Matty Shields isn't just booting it out of play. The guy's, like I say, right on him. He looks, he turns, he sees him, he knows he's there, and still does that. So, yeah, pretty rubbish. But another downside of the game is Todorov goes off injured about 10-15 minutes into the game. Hobbles off the pitch with the help of 2 people. So I think his season's probably done as well. No word on Savoury. Foxy's still out. Carlo's now out there at the end of the season. So we are struggling a wee bit, and I think that came across in that game. We did look just like we'd lost that killer edge. Now, obviously, this is something that we should probably touch on, because I don't think we've actually had a podcast since Queen's Park have been doing all right. I think maybe the last time we had a podcast, we were still pretty miserable.
I think the revival was just starting.
But yeah, we're now on 35 points, 30 games played. We've won, I think it's 3 out of the last 7. I think that one's just popped off. But, a few wins, a few draws, a few good performances. And it may be at this stage just about enough for safety. I have a general rule of, if you can get as many points as games played, then you should be safe. It's maybe thrown into question this year because this championship is so fucked up in comparison to most other years. Especially, you look at the form table now, and the top 3 don't have a single loss in the last 6. But it wasn't that long ago, 3 weeks ago maybe, where Queen's Park were the form team in the division alongside Ross County, because no one had more than 3 wins out of their last 6. and everyone had multiple losses. So it's all tightened right up again as we're coming towards the end. So we'll see if it's enough. But yeah, we just need to take it a game at a time. I would say that if Queen's Park can win one game out of their last 6, I make that safety.
One game. Yeah, do you know what the thing I do completely agree with you is what I think Queen's Park have now done really, really well is created a buffer zone of just teams below them.
Yeah.
In terms of you're now in the position with 6 games to go where for you to finish last, Wraith, Morton, County and Airdrie all need to overcome you. And I don't think all 4 are going to do that. I don't think 3 are going to do that either.
And,
so
and even County and Airdrie, they would need to do more than just overcome us in the games that we have against them. I don't know that we don't have any more games against County. I don't think we have a game against Airdrie, but we might have a game against Airdrie. So yeah, I don't. Fingers crossed. Like I say, it's enough.
Because we're now at the point of the season, Cam, where we'll get on to Ayr United soon enough. We've been Scott Brown's biggest critics for a while, and their form has truly fallen off a cliff.
Oh, yeah.
But we're now at the point of the season where you are level on points where, so I think from that perspective, when you're comparing budgets, you're comparing ambition, you're comparing everything, what you've done off the pitch, everything, it's an achievement. To be sitting where you are in the league. And I think, for any Queen's Park fan, I'd imagine any form of survival would be good. If you can end the season with a decent bit of form and kind of make it not even a sweat, then that's truly got to be a great season for you.
100%, especially when you look at the last 2 seasons. We're in a much better position now than we were at this point in the last 2 seasons. We were the opposite of what you just said, where we were until the end of the season. It wasn't until the last game of the season, last day, during the match, that you knew whether or not you were actually safe or not in terms of either straight relegation or playoff place. So we've been lucky the last 2 years, and I think, like you say, we've just put in that little bit of work at this point of the season to make it just that wee bit more comfortable. I'm hoping that comfort, though, doesn't go to the heads of the players, and they still know that they're fighting relegation here. Because my brother keeps on saying, oh damn, Dunfermline won today, and you're like, stop looking up, stop looking at that upper playoff place. We still need to be looking below. Yes, Wraith and Martin are below us, but it only takes us losing one and them both to win to us to be back in 8th place. And say Ross County win that game as well, they're only 4 points behind us then with 5 games to go, and all of a sudden it becomes sketchy. So just need to keep heads in the game, keep working hard. That's the thing that has been the trend of the last sort of 2 months or so of Queen's Park, is they're all working really hard. Now, not that they weren't working hard before, but you can just see, I don't know if they found that extra bit of grit. So they were just working that wee bit extra the whole game long, less defensive mistakes, and that's what's turned it around. So that, and alongside, I think we've touched on it, the fact that potentially Josh Fowler unbalanced our team to the point where, as the game goes on and he's not scored a goal, he's wanting to hold on to the ball and work himself an opportunity, because I don't know if he felt like he wasn't getting the opportunity from his teammates passing it and stuff like that. So he's like, well, I'm going to just make it myself. And he runs and holds onto the ball and doesn't pass it and doesn't open up opportunities. So, the team can, advance. But now that he's gone, the team are having to play more as a team. And I think that's where the results are coming from. But yeah, we'll just see how these last 6 games go. The one big benefit looking at that table there is there's no teams below us that have any games in hand. So what you see is what you get. So yeah, we just have to wait and see how it goes, eh?
And the other thing is there's only one team with a better goal difference below you too. So if that starts coming into it, you're starting from a fairly well, I wouldn't say strong position on -10, but you know what I mean. You're starting in a better position than some of the ones around you.
For sure.
So that's obviously a point too. But no, it's going to be a really, really, really fascinating battle at the drop cam. You know, we're going to see potentially, you know, one of a team that you wouldn't expect at the start of the season to go down. So yeah, it's really, really, really going to be an interesting one. And I think moving swiftly on to that,
Yep.
it was a massive result for Morton
Mm-hmm.
at the weekend there, and we've just touched on it there. Ayr United's form's fallen off a cliff. When I'd seen yet another defeat, I was half thinking, you know, that would have been Brown gone.
Yeah, well, at this rate, they
but-
hold on to him to the end of the season, but he is gone. There's no question. He will be no longer the Ayr manager come the start of next season.
You know, their home form in particular, I think, has been absolutely shocking.
Yeah.
But to lose at home against Morton, you know, with them taking the lead after the 3rd minute and that just being it, it's absolutely dire, isn't it?
It really is. It really is, obviously. And then off the back of the fact that we were there, you know, a couple of weeks ago and took the victory 1-0 from them as well, you know, it's not looking good at Ayr United, and as we've just touched on there and previously, Scott Brown has been struggling for a wee while, but the last few weeks have certainly been the nail in the coffin, if the coffin wasn't already nailed up by this point in the season. The form over the last 2 months have been absolutely dire. Not a single win in their last 6 games, 3 draws, 3 losses. That's not sustainable for a team who's spending as much as they are on even just the manager alone. You've got to imagine Scott Brown's on a reasonable fee, never mind the amount of players that they've brought in and not been able to play. And obviously they've already moved on Dom Thomas to Airdrie because he wasn't getting any game time, and I think there's probably other players who are sitting around thinking they're not getting enough game time for the calibre of player that they are. So yeah, they've shot themselves in the foot big time over at Ayr United, and yeah, I think they'll be already looking for who their replacement manager is going to be once Scott Brown departs at the end of the season.
Yeah, definitely. And Ayr United fans, you know, I'd be really, really, really keen to hear from you on this subject. You know, what do you make of Brian? What do you make of the season? You know, because you look at that there, 29 games, 14 draws, and just 7 wins. I mean, that's pretty grim.
Yeah.
You know, 7 wins in 29 games is you know, you've only got the 2 at the bottom that have got less than that. So, to me, obviously, you know, Ayr United fans who go, oh yeah, well, you know, only the top 3 have lost more than us, you know, and nobody below us has conceded more, apart from Wraith. But there's your slim pickings in trying to find anything good about this season from an Ayr United perspective.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, no, they've had a tough one so far. I would like to think that the Ayr United fans would look past it being, you know, Scott Brown and this sort of Celtic legend and stuff, and realise that he's not doing a good job, and that is more important. I certainly hope that that's the sentiment in the Ayr United stands. But we just have to wait and see. You know, decisions like these aren't made by the fans. They certainly play their part, but the powers that be are going to have a fairly, you know, established set of parameters that Scott Brown needs to achieve to be successful, and I can't imagine him coming in positively on any of the parameters, whatever they might be. I just can't see the performance of this Ayr United team this year being, you know, a tick mark in any box and any assessment that they may be putting down. So yeah, I think the writing's on the wall there. It's unfortunate, but that opens up the door to see, you know, who the next Ayr manager might be. Obviously they do have a bit of money, they do have a squad, so it'd be interesting to see who fills that vacancy. Now obviously we're jumping the gun a wee bit, nothing's actually happened, we're talking with such certainty that they're getting a new one, but you know, I just can't see past it at this point. So yeah, it was certainly interesting to see how that goes. But this season, I think's basically written off for them. You know, I think that's sort of it.
Yeah, I'd say definitely. I mean, at this stage, they're just now having to look over their shoulder with everybody catching up on them.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've been poor. What do you make of it from a Morton perspective? You know, because Ian Murray certainly never really got that new manager bounce.
No.
That you maybe, if you're a Morton fan, you would have hoped. You know, they went into that one at Somerset with 4 straight defeats in a row. So that was a big win for them. Obviously, it hasn't lifted them any places. But what will that do for them now, having closed that gap to the teams above them and now gave them a 5-point buffer
Oh,
over
that's
County in
it's
ninth?
big. We were watching the scores all throughout the game. Obviously, we conceded quite early. Martin had went up early, so us being the team directly above them, we were obviously desperately hoping that Ayr United were going to get a goal or two goals maybe. But no, with them winning and obviously keeping right at the back of us, it's only one more mistake from us and one more nice victory for Martin, and that's then back up ahead of us, sort of thing. So speaking from the perspective of the team directly above them, it was a huge result for them, absolutely massive, and it certainly keeps them in, the push for top five. It's kind of crazy how many teams can all still possibly be relegated and all still possibly be, pushing up towards, not into, but up towards the upper playoff places. So it's certainly exciting. It keeps it all interesting, as does the next game that happened that day, the Wraith Rovers game. So they're
Definitely.
obviously on the same points as Martin. Um, Also a victory on the day. Now, obviously, we've already touched on the fact that they have since lost a game to yourselves on Tuesday. But that game on Saturday, same thing as the Martin game. That was a massive victory for them, keeping them in touching distance of us in 6th place, and obviously Ayr United in 5th place on the same points. So, two big victories there for two teams that had, dropped down a couple of places recently, had maybe been worrying a little bit about how the form was going and the way it was looking. But mentally, both Wraith Rovers and Martin, I think, will take a lot from that. Obviously, again, Wraith Rovers then went on to lose on Tuesday, but I don't think you can take too much from that. Partick Thistle are obviously a much better team than Wraith Rovers at this stage of the season. You look at the players, you look at the form, you look at everything, and I think you just have to say that Partick Thistle are just a better team. So, big victories there. Keeping, like I was just touching on, everything is so very tight. Below 4th place. So it's it's exciting.
Really exciting. You were
That's
right,
it.
Cam.
Yeah.
It was actually for me pivotal, that victory for Wraith Rovers. It was the classic 6-pointer. If you look at the table, them winning that. If Airdrie went to Starks Park and won, they would have went level on points with Wraith. As it is, Wraith get the win. They're 6 points clear.
Yeah.
It's one of those old great football cliches, but it's so true. At this point of the season, so that victory was vital for Wraith. It's almost like a statement out to Airdrie as well. But you kind of look at Airdrie from their perspective. We spoke about it a wee bit at length now, but Taylor Sinclair was the obvious candidate. I don't think anybody can come out and say they shouldn't have hired Taylor Sinclair, because no, he done great. He was the obvious candidate, but it's just not worked since he's went into the permanent role. And they've still got a chance of staying up, absolutely. But they're right at the bottom, fighting for their lives, and somehow find themselves below an extremely dire Ross County side. So it's not looking good for Airdrie just now. And I think the other thing, Cam, when you look at the game against Rovers, Airdrie took the lead in the 54th minute, and then it was 3 goals in the last 25 minutes or so that killed Airdrie. That can't be great either. When you take the lead in the second half away from home and then concede 3, it's just not a great look, is it?
No, it definitely isn't. It's all about mentality there at that point. I think they're maybe jumping the gun. They've got their goal 54 minutes in. Huge victory for them if they manage to hold on to it. And it's all crumbled from that point on. I think probably as soon as that equalising goal went in, that's probably when the heads have dropped. They've went off, right, and never mind, actually. Cool, right, well, okay, back to a draw, right. And then obviously they've just struggled then on. So, yeah, big, massive game for them there. We've got one other one to look at, which, a fairly big game as well, all things considered. Ross County against Dunfermline, up in Dingwall, 2-2 that game. Ross County going up to an early lead and then throwing that away as the game has went on. Again, keeping it interesting at the bottom. Ross County only able to secure 1 point there. Takes them off of bottom, mind you, and places them in ninth place over Airdrie. So that's fairly big, but they've not managed to claw that ground back up to the teams up above them. Namely Morton and Wraith Rovers, who also got a victory that day. So, what are your thoughts on Ross County at this stage of the season and their result on Saturday?
Hanging on in there, aren't they, Ross County? I think you make a great point there, Cam. Could that point? I think on the face of it, Ross County, fans, players will be devastated at chucking away a 2-goal lead at home. But on the flip side, if that point is going to be the difference of them finishing bottom or not at the end of the season, obviously that's going to be a big point. It still doesn't, still doesn't take away from just how poor this has been for Ross County. We can, even if they pull it off at this stage and finishing 8th or whatever, we can in no way brand it a good outcome for County. It's still dire. The only thing you can kind of give them now at this stage is they at one stage I think they did look completely gone at the bottom, and obviously they have dragged themselves back into this sort of fight, if you like. But just for me, anytime you think there's a sign of life, you see them go 2-0 up or they get an odd win, and it just never seems to kind of come to anything. So I look at Ross County; they've conceded the most goals in the league, and I think when you see how they defend and what they've done throughout the season, that's not really surprising. And obviously now, as you can see, Sean Mackey getting a red card in the 93rd minute. Well, they're going to be without him for the next game also. So yeah, they've got their own challenges going on. But I suppose if you're looking at them from a semi county rose-tinted spectacles, is they're giving themselves a chance.
Oh no, definitely. I mean, I think if you look at all the teams in the bottom, the bottom 5, you still, look at Ross County and the players that they have, and you think they are the team best equipped for a relegation battle. But for whatever reason, all season long, they've just not managed to translate power on paper down to results on the park. And that's obviously been their problem all season long, just not being able to convert what should be a really good football team into winning football games. So I still can't work out what's going on there. They've obviously been through various managers. Stuart Kettlewell's got them, playing a bit better. Like they've won a few games, but is it really that much better? Are they really playing like they should be? I would say no. But are they able to pull it out for 6 games? I don't know. It's all very touch and go down the bottom, and I think it's one of those ones. I don't think we'll know who's going to be 9th and 10th until the last day of the season, probably. And up until that point, it could be anyone from 5th down.
I think the interesting thing is and this just shows you the difference of talking about title fight to a relegation fight. As County are the same amount of points away from safety as Thistle are away from the title, but it feels like a very different conversation, because that teams in the bottom half of the table, any of them could probably lose all their games between now and the end of the season. St Johnstone aren't going to have that same drop off. So whilst somebody listening at home might be saying, "Oh well, you're talking about County giving out of it," but we maybe. I certainly, talked about Thistle's chances, but, we didn't put as much weight in that as maybe you would a County survival chance. It's for very different reasons, isn't it?
Yeah, you're perfectly spot on there. Like you say, all the teams in that bottom 5 are likely to probably lose more games than they win in the last 6, whereas, you could easily see St Johnstone win all of their last 6. It's just the way it goes. Ross County certainly do have a better chance of escaping relegation than Partick Thistle do at winning the title. I'm with you there wholeheartedly, which is why it's scary for me as a Queen's Park fan to think if Ross County just all of a sudden perform for the last 6 games of the season, then who bites the bullet and goes down in 9th or 10th place,
Well, let's keep that chat going, because I think it's the perfect segue into the weekend's fixtures.
Yeah.
Because you just said there about Ross County's chances over Thistle, but who plays each other on Friday night at Firhill? It's Partick Thistle against Ross County.
True. Yeah.
So What we could be seeing here, Cam, is one title fight either ignited,
Yeah.
and accelerated, or one title fight, maybe extinguished compared to one survival fight,
Yeah.
ignited and one survival fight
100%.
extinguished here on Friday night. So I think from a kind of outsider's perspective, this game has got so much riding on it at both the top and the bottom, and not just for the two teams that are playing in it.
Easy, yeah, 100%. It's a massive game. Now, just very briefly, not on the topic of the games themselves, we've got 2 Friday night games. I take it your game will not be on the television as you've just had one on the TV. You're just on a Friday for some other reason.
We are on the Friday because we've moved it because of the Scotland game.
Okay.
And neither of the games are on the telly on Friday.
Oh, are they both just moved for the Scotland game? Right. Okay. I just assumed that the Wraith would have been on because you hadn't been on. But if neither of them are on, then why not? There's 2 Friday night games to choose on. Oh well. But yeah, so all the games then moved for the Scotland game. You guys have moved it the day before, whereas the other 2 games on Saturday have been moved to 1 o'clock. And then the other game that's just mysteriously gone missing, it's being played on the 14th of April. I don't know if that's also just moved because of the Scotland game. It's Dunfermline against Airdrie, so it's not even
might be because I know Dunfermline are often calling off their games at the international break because of getting youth internationals.
Yeah, they are. Of course, they are. Scumbags.
So that's probably that. I mean, talking about Friday night, interestingly enough, the BBC are showing Inverness v Queen of the South in League One at 7:45 on Friday night. So let's give a wee plug to League One. Yeah. Check that out.
That's on BBC Scotland. Is that Alba?
No, it's on Alba.
Okay, well, I'll still maybe watch it. I take it you
Friday
mentioned
night,
that you'll be trying to be in attendance at the Thistle game on Friday.
Hope so. I pulled off some hijinks to get away from work a wee bit earlier. If I can do that 2 weeks in a row, hopefully. And I've just realised actually, and I'm going to very, very, very briefly just gloss over this because we did mention it earlier, but obviously the Thistle game last night, the 2-0 victory. I just want to very briefly, Cam, talk about the 2 goals. Ben McPherson's goal was absolutely outstanding team play. If anybody has got 30 seconds, go online, go and find it, go and watch it. At our level, to see one touch passing and movement play to be executed so perfectly, to then create just a gap of space at the back post for McPherson was outstanding, and you could tell that it came straight from the training field. To Aidan Fitzpatrick's, getting the ball 35 yards out and deciding that he's going to dribble past 4 Rovers defenders and stick it in the corner. Both goals were truly outstanding and a truly outstanding win for Thistle. So yeah, taking that into this Friday, Cam, we've got momentum now. Against a county team that don't.
It must be nice as well, obviously, saying about Fitzpatrick there, because my interpretation of Fitzpatrick this year is mighty disappointing. Am I correct in that, or?
Well, it's funny you say that, right? Because yes and no, right? He's a player that, yes, he's really frustrating at times to watch, and he's really frustrating at times, because his output sometimes you feel as though isn't always there. But Thistle put out a stat this afternoon that apparently he's about to break the assist record for a season, and he's like one off. I think he's on like 14 or something just now for this season in all competitions or something. So like when you think of it from that perspective, I think the thing with Fitzpatrick is if he could just add a few more goals to his game, and just be that wee bit more consistent, it would have everybody. But certainly, the last a few weeks in particular, I feel as though he's stepping up to the plate, and when you do look at those assist numbers, you can't really knock him for it either.
Yeah. I clicked on the top scorers bit of the BBC Sport because it shows both the goals and assists, but he's not on the goal charts, which means he's got less than 4 league goals. So
I think he's got 3.
I was hoping to see what his league assist there was, because that's mighty impressive 4 in all comps. However, I'm always very sceptical of the all comps, especially when we play the League Cup league group stage at the start of the season where you play all Diddy teams, but nothing to take away from the fact that 14 assists in a season is mighty, regardless of who it is against. It shows that you're helping the team out whether it's against a wee team or a big team. You're doing the work. So fair play. That is a nice wee stat that I'm sure he'll be pleased about. But yes, I'm sure, like you say there, you would obviously want it to be a wee bit more consistent. But that's sort of part and parcel for football at this level, is it not? Just a wee bit of inconsistency and not always playing at your best. That's why they're playing in the Scottish Championship and not higher, I suppose. But very nice for yourselves, and hopefully that translates into a nice pumping of county at the weekend. Well, hey.
Yeah, absolutely. And then one more game on the Friday night, Cam, and it's Wraith Rovers' third home game in the space of 6 days. They had Airdrie at home on the Saturday, Thistle at home on the Tuesday, home again, this time against Ayr United. How do you see that one going?
Well, they're going to be tired. Obviously, I think you look out in the face of it, and you think, Airdrie are really bad at the moment. They're away from home against Wraith Rovers. They'll probably lose that. But like you say there, it's the third game. Yes, all at home, but third game in 6 days for them. Probably some tired legs, and Wraith Rovers don't have one of these vast expansive squads filled up with loads of quality players. They'll be struggling playing that many games in that length of time. So I think it'll be a tough game for Wraith on Friday. I don't obviously therefore just automatically concede that Ayr are more likely to win that game. I still think it's got a poor draw written all over it, but it could be interesting. Both teams obviously got something to play for there. Wraith Rovers will overtake Ayr United if they win. Obviously Ayr still have a game in hand, but that game in hand is against our Dunfermline, so it's certainly not a guaranteed 3 points. So that's an exciting game. 2 exciting games on the Friday that have big implications for the season as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. And then on the Saturday, it's firstly Morton against Arbroath. Arbroath almost are in a kind of no man's land between now and the end of the season.
Yeah.
I kind of think they'll finish probably third regardless, but definitely in the playoffs.
100%. Arbroath are finishing third at this point. I think the top 3 are set. We don't know the exact placings of the top 2, but the top 3 are going to be the top 3. At this stage, I don't have any real doubt in my mind about that.
So I think from that perspective, you think Morton at home, it's a massive game for them. You talk about, teams like yourselves, not being too far from theoretical safety. Morton 2 points behind. Will be wanting to move into your position and put you in the theoretical, kind of sort of sweat zone. How much confidence do you have in Morton? They won their last game. Can they make it back to back?
I don't have crazy high confidence in Morton at the moment, especially against Arbroath, but you can never write them off at the Capello. And obviously with us playing St Johnstone at the same time on the Saturday, it's like you said, Morton managed to do enough to get 3 points there. They're quite likely going to overtake us, so it's a big game. I don't know if Morton have it about them to take on Arbroath and get the victory, but we'll certainly see. They are a tough team to break down at times, maybe not quite so much recently, but obviously Arbroath didn't perform against us at their home ground. They only got the points because of a mistake from our part, so we'll have to see what Arbroath turns up. That will probably be more of the deciding factor than what Morton team turns up, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's definitely a good point on there, because there's no real pressure on Arbroath. They don't need to go out and get the win, but obviously they'll want to keep their form going.
Mm-hmm.
Yourselves against St Johnstone, though, Cam, how much of what kind of confidence have you got going into this? Do you think you can go there and get the win? Maybe scrape a draw, or is it just you're kind of feeling the worst?
Well, last time. Is it last time? Yeah, it was last time. It's the only time we played them at their place this season. We were losing 4-0, maybe 4-1, and brought it back right near the end to 4-3 and looked to, nearly had the chance to equalise it up. Now we played them more recently at home and drew 1 each. So, the results are getting slightly better against St Johnstone. Obviously things have potentially changed a wee bit more. I think they know how much that they need the victory, maybe more so than earlier parts in the season where they felt they'd maybe been cantering a little bit, and now it's heating up a wee bit. So they know that they need the points. They are in good form at the moment, and they do have a lot of really good players. So again, for this game, it's certainly going to be more about what St Johnstone appears on the pitch rather than what Queen's Park appears. I think even if Queen's Park are playing, playing pretty well and not perfectly, obviously, but playing, near the top of their game, St Johnstone's still a big one to overcome. So, not expecting a victory there, but I'd certainly hope that we can, push them for another draw and another point off them this year, and hopefully keeping, their various amounts of firepower quiet. I did see today that they will be putting on a £10 pay-per-view for the game, whether you're international or not. It does allow that ability to watch it for a lot of people like myself who are going to the Scotland game, and at the moment it's not looking like timings are going to work out and stuff, so nice to be able to watch that game pay-per-view at home before going off to the Scotland game. So that will be a nice one if we manage to do something, but like I say, I'm not holding up too much hope at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a tough game, but as you kind of highlighted there, you've ran them close a few times and get a point at home. So, you never know. And if you can certainly do Thistle a turn, we would love you for that. Then that just leaves predictions, Cam.
It does.
Which obviously we've missed a couple of weeks. So anybody playing against us at home is going to be well ahead. But we're still going to be playing against each other. So I don't know where we're at or what.
I'll just do, because obviously I touched on it with you prior, is we have had a few of the postponed games from earlier in the season that we were waiting on, so I'll go through these. So we were waiting on game week 21. Technically we were waiting on 2 games, but I think we missed doing the prediction for the Ayr Queen's Park game, so we both got a no score there. But we had been waiting for the Dunfermline County game, which got played a couple of weeks ago, I think. But we got no points from that, so the points from game week 21, I'd had 2 correct results, you'd had 3 correct results, just not the correct scores. So 4 points for you and 6 points for me. Other way around, 4 points for me, 6 points for you. But it's game week 22, Jack Curry, that it's made it interesting. So we had been waiting on the Morton Dunfermline game, which again happened a few weeks ago, 2-0 to Morton. That was the final one that we'd been waiting on there. Now, prior to that game, Curry, you had 4 incorrect results. And then you had Morton Dunfermline for a 0-0. So you had a 0-point round, Curry, for your first time as we've ran so far. 0 points for you. But do you know what makes it that much worse?
You got like 50 points.
I got 10 points for 3 correct results and 1 correct actual scoreline. Only getting 1 wrong. And the 1 wrong was when I backed Thistle to beat County away and you lost.
That would be 11 points you get then.
No,
and I'm even giving you extra points because you get 5 for a correct result, and then if you got 3, it's 2 times 6, 5, 6, 11.
You're right. You're right.
I've just gave you an extra point. Hey, listeners at home, this is the type of honourable guy I am. I could have fucking let him be a point behind you.
What makes that worse?
You're now a point ahead of me.
Yeah.
There you go. See, listeners, I'm fucking honourable at least.
So technically, there's a chance that I could be 1 more point again. So I'll give you the option on this one. When you were at my house on Friday before you went to the game, we gave a prediction to each other. Obviously, we didn't go on to predict any of the other games that week. I predicted a 2-each draw. You predicted, I think it was 3-0 Thistle or 3-1 maybe.
Yeah.
Am I getting the 2 points for that draw, or are we just wiping that week because we didn't do any of the other predictions?
Well, my gut was because, and I didn't want to come across this because obviously you did get the points, but my feeling was because, that would be a kind of 5th of a game week.
Yeah.
So I mean,
like
why don't we let the listeners decide?
I've written it down, but I've not added the score. I have marked them, but I haven't actually written it yet.
I'm not going to cry about it if they're added,
Okay.
but I'm not sure if they should be added.
I was hoping for something more concrete, so I'll leave it vague at the moment, unless it comes down to a tiebreaker or something at the end of the season, in which case I'm taking it. But we have now games to predict. Now with the knowledge that you're in fact 1 point behind going into the last 6 game weeks. Now we have missed a shit ton of weeks. We've missed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If we don't count any points for that week that just happened there. So yeah, like you say, the listeners at home will be flying ahead if they've been keeping up with it. But it's me to go first this week. Oh, I nearly made that big mistake again, Curry, where I paused the recording. 1 second, I'm just getting my iPad out.
That would have been very unfortunate.
I will not get my iPad out because it is out of battery. Get my phone out. Okay, predictions. I'm looking in the wrong season. Season 2. There we go. So first up, Thistle against County. I am going to go for a Partick Thistle victory. I'm going to go for 2-0.
I'll definitely take that. I mean, I'm also going to go for a Thistle victory. I'm just going to go slightly closer, though. I'm going to go 2-1.
2-1 for you. No problem. Next up, we've got Wraith against Ayr. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw on that one.
Bastard, that's what I'm getting. I'm just going to stick with my gut. I'm going to go 1 each as well. It's one of those ones I think it's just got draw written all over it, doesn't it?
100%. Morton against Arbroath. Do I feel a draw again? I think I do. I'm going to go 1 each again in this one.
I'm glad you're doing that. I'm going to actually go for Morton in this one.
Okay.
I kind of think we sort of touched upon it. I think Arbroath, for me, are pretty comfortable where they are. You know, they don't need to go out and push themselves. You know, nobody wants to get an injury. But Morton are the other end of the scale, so I'm going to go 2-0 Morton.
2-0 Morton, my goodness. No problem. Next up, St Johnstone against Queen's Park. Like I say, I don't have too much hope for that one. I'm going to go 3-1 St Johnstone.
Yeah, I can't. I just need to go with St Johnstone win. Obviously, it's not what I want, but it's what I'll go for. I'll go 2-1 though. I'll say it's going to be a wee bit closer.
Okay, good. And obviously, there is the Airdrie Dunfermline game. That is the 14th of April. Will we hold off on that prediction until the time?
Let's go for it, because we'll try and do back to our usual schedule between now and the end of the season. So yeah, we'll do that.
Cool. Right, spot on. So Thistle against County, we've both taken a Thistle victory, 2-0 me, 2-1 you. Wraith against Ayr, both taken a 1-1 draw. I've taken a 1-1 draw again for the Morton Arbroath game, but you have went for a 2-0 Morton victory. And St Johnstone against Queen's Park, we've both taken St Johnstone to win that one. I've went 3-1, you have went 2-1, with one game still to be predicted coming next month.
Absolutely, and this is where the season's hotting up, listeners. You know, so if you're going to a game, as always, let us know. Let us know how it goes. Get your comments in, and really, really enjoy it, because it's going to be all change and it's going to be all excitement.
And tell us how the pies were.
Absolutely, we always love to hear about the pies.
Too right. And that's it for another podcast. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening / watching, even though there's not much of a watching aspect of it now. It's just listening, but with a video format. Give us a wee message, and also let us know where you're listening to the podcast from. And we will talk to you again next week. Thank you very much.
Have a great one, guys, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.